I have an email here from John, who's doing most of his family is doing most of their sailing in the Bahamas and Florida Keys, uh, and the issue is mildew and condensation, um, and that is and has been, by the way, a perennial problem. Uh, I'm dealing with it all the time. Uh, he has a production boat that has a bunch of overhead hatches, but when he closes the hatches in the rain or leaves the boat for a period of time, the inside of the boat becomes a steam bath, and clothes that are left aboard and everything gets soggy and wet, and it becomes a very upsetting thing. And it's that's not an easy situation. Uh, what's happened in the boat industry, production boats, is they've put a lot of deck hatches on, which, by the way, are great deck hatches for ventilation. The problem is that you can't leave the deck hatches open in the rain, and you can't leave the deck hatches open when a boat is unattended. You bring the boat somewhere, leave it for a week and or two, and come back. And you're dealing with this. I don't want to get too technical here, but basically what we're talking about, simply put, is the condensation you see on the side of an iced tea glass, where you have two different temperatures going on. It creates condensation. Uh, Fiberglass boats that are built with liners, fiberglass liners, and it's called, in the business, it's called IGU, internal glass unit. They stack all of these liners inside up against the hull, and it makes for an economical way to build a boat to keep the price down. That's a good thing. The bad thing with liners is the fact that when they start stacking all of these liners together, and even some of the more expensive boats are using wood module units that they're dropping one on top of the other, is that there is no way for there to be a free flow of air between the hull and the inside of the boat. You slap a liner right up against the side of the hull, and the inside of that liner, it happens to be a locker, or it's inside of a head, or wherever. You open up a locker door and you're looking at a fiberglass liner. You're standing on a lot of production boats, you're standing on a liner. And all you have for ventilation in a boat is some overhead hatches that have to be closed. So the free flow of air is the answer, not a simple thing to obtain, however. Dorade vents, Dorade being the name that come off of a boat that Olin Stevens did in the 1930s, a very famous racing boat, the Dorade, or a way, a little cowl vent and a little box, and the air comes in and it goes over a little baffle and allows air to come into the cabin. And if it's raining out or whatever, or you're in a seaway, it still allows air. Let me say this, which gets everybody a little nuts too, is that the air flow in a boat, contrary, when a boat's moving now, when a boat is moving, contrary to logic, I guess, the air is coming in from the back of the boat to the forward part of the boat. Maybe the best analogy I can give is they sell pickup trucks with little sliding windows between the driver and the passenger seat. They became very popular 10, 20 years ago when that started for ventilation. The only problem with that is the fact is that when you open up that little window, all the dirt and dust and debris that's in the back of the bed in the pickup truck comes right into the cab of the truck. So because it's a Venturi effect, it's the same when you see people driving in an automobile, convertible automobile. Take a look at their hair, and what you'll see is, especially women who have long hair driving in a convertible, you'll see that their hair is blowing forward. It's not blowing back, because what's happening is the air is coming over the top of the windshield. It's creating a back turbulence that is pushing their hair forward. Boats, not much different other than the fact that you're going a lot slower, so you're really not conscious of it. Uh, so that if you can put screens in that you can lock in a companionway to let air in, even when a boat's at rest, is a big help. The raid vents are a big help. Fans are a big help. Uh, those solar vents that they stick in the boat, stick in the decks of boats that have a little fan. Put them on exhaust, by the way. You want to put them on exhaust because that's where all the heat rises. The heat will rise up in the cabin. You know, it's a lot hotter at 6 foot than it is at 1 foot because heat rises. If you can keep the lockers open when you leave the boat, if you're tied up to a dock in a very, very hot climate, or if you're up in Maine where where you have a climate that's very, very humid during the summer, where you've got fog and rain, if you can leave the lockers all cracked open and drawers and keep some fans running. If you're tied up to a dock and shore power and a battery charger going, you can leave the fans running. You don't have to shut all of this stuff off when you leave the boat. If you're out on a mooring and you're leaving the boat, that's when dorade vents come into play. You can buy these things. Some of them are self-contained. They sell them in West and stuff like that. If you don't have them on your boat or the next boat you're buying, make sure that you start looking for dorade vents because you can turn the cowls. Most places have, like we have here in Rhode Island, we have a prevailing southwest wind. Every afternoon the wind comes in, it's a sea breeze. You can face all of your dorade vents to the southwest. These things turn, they're not fixed. They don't have to be facing forward. The other thing to do with a boat that has nothing and all the ports and windows are all fixed and you can't get any air down below, especially when a boat's moving, they face all the hatches forward. In other words, the hinge is aft, the hatch lifts up forward. Great. When a boat is stopped and you're sitting on an anchorage, that works very well. However, when the boat is moving, if you leave that hatch open, you're going to get spray, you're going to get rain, you're going to get everything else in the hatch, and you end up closing the hatches down, even if the weather is just mildly inclement. All right, you might want to consider turning one or two of those hatches around. Bloody things are square or rectangle or whatever. If the hinge is facing is on the aft side of the hatch, unscrew the thing. It pops right out. Wasn't born in there. Somebody screwed that thing down. Pop it out and turn it right around. Do a 180 so you've got one hatch that you can at least leave open just a crack when the boat is moving. That'll help bring the air through the boat. The key is the free flow movement of air. Not easy to obtain. Certainly fans work, but if the boat's out on a mooring, you'll run the batteries down in a big hurry unless you can be plugged into something. So it's free flow movement of air. Leave the doors in lockers, drawers, everything open a crack, if not open more than that. I know it offends some people's sensibility to be doing that, but it does work. If you're getting a lot of moisture in a hanging lock, on Shannon's, I've got a whole different setup because we put ceilings inside the boat and we leave air space, and thus the air flows all over the place inside of lockers and stuff. But if you've got a boat with a fiberglass line, and it's obviously not something you can do, all right? You can't take a hole saw and run some vents and buy these things out of the catalog. They make these little grills that you can put in. Wherever you can open up these tight, confined areas that trap air, which create condensation, which create the mildew, which create that dampness that everybody is feeling and the bedding and everything else, do that. Not easy, but it is possible. You can even put those solar vents, and I noticed that the boat show, I see some of the production boats are now even putting these solar vents right in the hatches. Not a bad idea, because you can't leave those hatches open. Not only you get rain in, but you also may get a burglar popping in and looting the inside of your boat if you're leaving the boat for any period of time. Um, Free flow movement of air. If you can put screens or leave the companionway open as much as you can. Everybody's putting Dodgers on these boats, and then they're putting these plastic chicken coops on top of it to keep the sun off of everybody. So no air is going to get into that companionway, unfortunately, with all of these things that I see, these big plastic houses everybody's putting over to get themselves out of the weather. The trouble with that is that it screws up the airflow in a boat. You know, if you don't smoke, get somebody that does, preferably a cigar, because that happens to make a lot of smoke, and that's actually what I use. Not very scientific, all right? But if you can if you can see smoke, and you can see the way the air is moving in your boat, it's going to surprise you. It's going to surprise you, all right? So fans, dorade vents, maybe a hatch or two that'll face aft, screens on the port lights, and keep the air moving in the boat, and you'll cut the condensation and the mildew down considerably.